From the job site to the code book, this is a Pool Envy podcast, where licensed pool professionals speak up. Code, compliance, craftsmanship. Hosted by Jason Davies. Licensed across Wisconsin, Florida, and Texas. Your deep end starts now.
If you've got a new pool, or you're in the middle of building one, there's a part of the process most people never think about. And it's the part that causes some of the most expensive problems later. Because once it's done, you don't get to see it again. We've talked before about things like acid washing. That's surface damage. We've talked about startup mistakes. What happens in those first few weeks after the pool's filled? But this is earlier than that. This is what happens before the pool is even finished. There's a moment in every build where everything gets covered. Concrete goes in, deck gets poured, finishes get applied, and whatever is underneath that, it is now permanent. That's where the problems start, not because something dramatic happened, but because something small got skipped, or rushed, or assumed to be good enough. Take bonding, for example. On paper, it's straightforward. In the field, it's one of the most commonly misunderstood parts of a pool. You'll see connections that look fine the day they're installed, but they're not suited for the environment they're installed in. Constant moisture, chemically active conditions. Over time, those connections degrade. Now you've got a system that was technically there, but not actually functioning the way it should. And nothing looks wrong until it is. Plumbing is one. I've seen a lot of builders run plumbing right through the bond beam. It's convenient in the moment, keeps the job moving, but now you've created a stress point inside the structure. Think about it like this. Imagine a long wall, and along the top edge, part of the wall is thinner than the rest. Not by a lot, just enough. That's the weak point. That's where it wants to crack. That's where it wants to fail. It might look fine today, but structurally, it's already been compromised. And that's the kind of thing that shows up later as cracking. Not right away, later. And then you get into things like drains. I've seen trench drains and main drains set above the steel, instead of the steel being formed around them. Not because it's complicated, but because it takes more time to bend and tie everything properly. So the drain gets set first. The steel ends up wherever it lands. And now you've changed the structure of that area. Sometimes the floor ends up higher than it should be because of it. It's subtle. Most people won't catch it. But now you've changed elevations, slope, and how that floor behaves. And again, nothing looks wrong when it's done. You don't see it once the shell is shot. But you've interrupted what was supposed to be a continuous reinforcement system. And that's the kind of thing that shows up later as cracking, movement, or problems around those penetrations. And then there's something even simpler than that, supporting the steel. I've seen rebar sitting on clay brick instead of proper chairs or concrete dobies. Not because it's better, just because it's there. These systems are designed so the steel sits a specific distance off the soil and has a consistent amount of concrete around it. That's not arbitrary. It's there for strength, durability, and to protect the steel over time. When you start putting things under the steel, like brick, now you've changed that spacing. You've changed that thickness. So imagine this. You've got a floor that was designed to be a certain thickness, whatever that number is, 6 inches, 7 inches, whatever the design called for. Now you put a brick under that steel. That section isn't that thickness anymore. It's whatever is left above that brick. And that changes everything. Strength, consistency, how that floor handles stress over time. It also affects how that concrete cures in that area, because now you've got something underneath it that pulls moisture differently. Again, nothing looks wrong when it's finished. You don't see it. But structurally, it's not what it was supposed to be. The common thread in all of this is timing. These aren't problems you catch later. They are problems you either catch early or you live with. And that's the part most homeowners never see. Because from the outside, everything looks like progress. The job is moving. Concrete is going in. It looks like things are getting done. But that's also the moment where the most important work is getting locked in. So when someone says, my plaster failed, or there's something wrong with my pool, a lot of times the real cause isn't where the problem showed up. It started way earlier. That's why documentation matters. That's why verification matters. Not because something is guaranteed to go wrong, but because if it does, you need to know where it started.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice, and it is not site-specific engineering, code, or safety determination. All field conditions should be evaluated in context. Thanks for listening to the Pool Envy Podcast, where licensed pool professionals speak up. Hosted by Jason Davies, licensed across Wisconsin, Florida, and Texas. For more insights, subscribe and join us next time.